Hello, sunshine. This is Osiris. You're watching the Osiris show. So this is part two from the first, not one of the first, the second episode of Analysis Paralysis. So this is part two, where we're just gonna like pick up where we left off. So in the first part, we talked about what the definition of analysis paralysis is, and the reason why we go through it. And I shared with you guys just a couple anecdotes of how this kind of like happened to me. So now we're gonna dive into part two, just continuing on. So this time we're gonna focus and we're gonna just carry on. Okay, so I do have my journal nearby just because I need to like read this or else I'll just like blabber all over the place. Okay, so how do you overcome this analysis paralysis? And it's just super simple, which is setting yourself some goals, giving yourself a deadline, and also just making things a little bit simple. So back to kind of like what I was saying about how I wanted to create the show and like none of this was happening and I just got stuck in this whole like overthinking stage. So I gave myself the deadline of like, okay, getting this done by July, at least getting in the flow of like the moments and getting in the flow of like, okay, pressing record, getting stuff ready. And because I was just thinking about like when I'm getting it done, but I wasn't doing any of things. But so I just set myself a little goal of like, let me just do this by July, even though like no one knows this. I could like move it over and do it by August, but you still like you're gonna be cheating yourself if you don't do it. So just give yourself a goal, give yourself a deadline. So my deadline was getting it happen or getting the wheels turning going in July. So before the month is over, I do want to post the episodes or like at least, these ones that I'm recording now, but at least the first one I recorded, like I want to get that done before July ends. And making things simple. So what you could do by making things simple is cutting the things that are like the least important and just focusing on one thing. That really helped me out. Like I had way too many ideas and I realized like, okay, I just have to just sit down and just do all these little things. Like I had like all these ideas and I was like, thinking, okay, so if it's like the Osiris show, for example, and a lot of TV shows, they go through segments, right? And they have like, oh, we go through like hot topics, we go through this. And I kind of was thinking that and I just felt like, oh my God, I'm overcomplicating myself and I don't need to do that. I don't have to do any of that. So just one topic at a time, making things simple. Another thing is taking a risk. So this is the risk within itself. This is like the best thing, but also you just don't know if you don't throw yourself out there. Failure is through experiencing. So like taking a risk. I feel like also like a lot of us are like mistake babies, for example. Like I know that's like such an obscure example, but all of our parents didn't. A lot of them, did not use contraception. So we are risk within ourselves. Like we're here. So embrace imperfections. That is like one of the best things that I had to have the best like this is the best advice, but it's like the most challenging part, which is like embracing imperfections. Like no one is perfect. That's like, I think it's even like in the Bible, like you shouldn't be perfect because then you become the creator, right? So just realizing that nothing is going to be exactly how it comes out. Even then, like me filming things, I have setbacks. Like I was just telling somebody earlier, like, oh, I wasted 45 minutes just because there were some loud ass kids outside and I didn't want to record because it's going to pick up all their stupid noises and all the conversations that we're having. And like, it's like, can you hear that? Can you hear them? And the thing is like when I played some of those clip backs, I'm like, yeah, you could totally hear them. I'm going to just wait it out. So things are just not going to happen the way you thought they will be. So just embracing the imperfections. And then the most important thing, which is like why I kept it in the last, like, how to overcome this part, is practice mindfulness to calm your mind. So the way you could do this is through meditation and journaling, like getting your thoughts together, and also practice mindfulness, because when you practice mindfulness, then you embrace your imperfections. Like one thing, kind of like it's like one bird, two stones. No, wait, one stone, two birds, whatever. But it's just like that. It's like you get to basically calm your thoughts, clear your mind, and by meditating or by actually like journaling how you want the outcome to be, you're also then doing visualization. You have to be, mindful of your own actions, which leads to my whole topic of why we all do this and why we get stuck in analysis paralysis. So once I learned about this topic, which is called epigenetics, epigenetics is something that is an actual science. So this is just not just the Lulu manifestation. This is not just a lot of talk about actual, you're putting your consciousness out there, because there's some science backed with this. So what is epigenetics? Epigenetics is the study of heritable changes in the genetic gene expression that occur in our DNA. It factors environment, behaviors, and influences which genes are turned on and turned off. These are not genetic mutations. So, because they're not genetic mutations, they could be reversed. So how do you reverse these, basically, these genes that have been given to you by epigenetics? You do it by making lifestyle changes. The struggles that our ancestors went through, meaning down the line, like your parents' parents, your great-grandparents, all of these people went through certain things which changed your environment, which made you get stuck in this loop, in this sort of simulation. And that really, really affects the way we show up in life. Okay, so carrying on. So I did a little research on epigenetics, and I stumbled upon an actual lab test that they did on Emory University. So in Emory University, they did a test with rats, and maybe they were rats or mice. I mean, once a rodent, doesn't matter. So they gave the rat, they were putting him in a little simulation and a test where they brought the rat or the mice to a cherry blossom, and they let it smell it. They were feeding it, and every time it got near it, they chopped it. They gave him a little electricity, where then every time he got near the cherry blossom and he wanted to smell it, he basically got scared to get near it. So cut to the rat having, impregnating one of the female rats in that little little studio. The baby that came out of the rat just developed the same genes. When the baby got near the cherry blossom, it got scared of it, and then the baby didn't actually have to get sting anymore. It actually became scared of it. So automatically this got passed down. And I'm just thinking about how, for example, okay, I'm going to give you an example about my life and my family, right? So I believe that in my family, we have a problem with substance abuse pertaining to alcohol. We have inbred, a bunch of alcoholics. And I believe that this started with my grandfather, and I just don't know if it went back. And I believe it went further back. But when my grandfather, basically passed it down, so we have, my grandmother had 7 daughters, including my mom. So all of them went through their period of time where they had substance abuse, and some of them went beyond just the alcohol. A couple of my aunts. So my mom then had children. She has 4 children, including myself. All of us have an addiction with something. I myself was completely vulnerable, and I let you guys know how I was, I had a substance abuse. I couldn't not pass a day being not sober. I would look forward towards my days where I wanted to drink, and I wanted to I couldn't wait to get off work to like get drunk and just black out and go to sleep. I couldn't wait to go out and drink with my friends. Like everything revolved around alcohol, and then it evolved around weed. And I think about this now because I was just like, wait, so like I know my mom had problems with alcohol at one point, and then she decided to get healthy, and now she moderation, special occasions when she drinks. And now I have my think about her grandpa, like her dad, which is my granddad, and he just had problems with substance himself. And it became a thing. And then I think about my brother and how he has like like the worst like case of alcoholism, and he's not able to shake it off. But you have to really, really want it for yourself. Like, it really comes down to that saying that you could take the horse to water, but you cannot force it to drink. So I made the lifestyle changes to kind of like stop that barrier. Like, I decided to get sober. Did I get a sign from God? Yes. But I could have chosen to ignore it and been living the same type of life that I was living before when I decided to cut the drinking. And then the biggest struggle for me was finally cutting the weed. And for me, like, it took having another dream, right? And just like cutting it off, and just like from day to night. And these are going to be generational changes. So unfortunately for me, like, I am a homosexual, so I am not gonna like, not never say never, but like I just don't foresee children in my future of my own. So it's not like I'm gonna be able to like, what, this is like a good way to actually for me to practice this. So like, what if I do have kids and see if they develop the genes of my mindset where we're like optimistic sober people? Like, why not? And I also like, I am looking forward to going back and saying like, oh my God, guess what? Now I'm 3 years sober, I'm 4 years sober. Like, I can't wait to say that. Or I'm just like, oh, that's just not for me. Like, I do like turning like drinks down. Like, I like it because it's almost just like, oh wow, you don't really need to be yourself or like have to have fun. I'm like, yeah, it's just, you could, I think like the other day I was like testing out with a couple of friends, like going to clubs and seeing how I could do in these like alcoholic infused environments, and see if I could go back to being tested. And it's such a mindset, even though like I was scared to get mocktails because like, if you've been to the Abbey, that sometimes they spike or you could see the TikToks, like these are allegedly, but you could get roofied at the club. And sometimes you get roofied by the bartenders because they have the pills underneath the shakers, right? So that had happened to me a couple of times when I used to drink. So I was like, thinking like, I want to get a mocktail, but I just don't trust the shaker. Or what if the shaker's not clean? Because I have to like, like it's like they shake a couple of these drinks, these like non-alcoholic ones. So I just was like, I drank like 3 Red Bulls, but I was having a lot of fun. Like, I feel like I got caffeinated, but it was just like, I think it was like back then I was realizing, oh my God, I think I was just drinking because I needed to hold something in my hand. I felt socially awkward, especially since some of my friends would leave to like hoe around or talk to boys, and sometimes I would like, I think I know for a fact I come off a little intimidating. So I'm like, okay, sometimes I'm just like by myself. So I just felt like, what, I think drinking would subdue that, being by myself while I get reunited by my friend later. So that just went on a tangent for no reason. Okay, so also like that's like my take on epigenetics and how it applied to my life. And it's just, that's just one example because it was kind of like the first thing in my mind about like how like the traits of people who are alcoholic, they get passed down through generations. Because as a child, you don't want to drink, right? You're like, you almost have your parents tell you, oh, don't give him that until he's 21 or of age, right? So, which is, I said this on a TikTok video once, and I'm not sure if I said it on like my intro video, about how you want to go back to your childlike self. Because when you're a child, you want to take care of your brain. Your brain isn't fully developed, so you don't give that baby any drugs, any alcohol. You don't want to give it alcohol because you want to make sure that that baby's brain is developed all the way. So I am treating myself like a child again, where I don't want to just like, I don't want that. Like, that's bad for me. That's bad for me. And I'm like trying to apply this to little things. It's going to be harder for me to do it through, especially through things that I have like become addicted to, like my sweet tooth, for example. Like, oh, like I'm always craving carrot cake or like flan or like little desserts. Like I like desserts. So I'm just like, at the end of the day, having a dessert every day, it's going to be bad for your health, because then you get diabetes or your cholesterol spikes up and down, you get overweight. And I refuse to be a obese fat person. I want to look good in my clothes, so like I try to diet, I try to like cut the thing, drink more water, drink chlorophyll, supplements, vitamins, whatever you could do to basically um learn to do things in like moderation. That's kind of like what I do. So it's not perfect. I'm starting, but it's like, like I realized that when I stopped the drinking or whatever, like one thing took over another. So I was just like, what do we have to be addicted to one thing? So it's also like, just okay, give you another example that's not so just about me. So like epigenetics, for example, it could come down to slavery, and how, and like, for example, they say that African Americans, or like black people for the most part, who came, actually African Americans, that's the right term, because they came from Africa over here. So like they do not know how to swim. And yes, they do. They can. They do know. But the reason why through generations this was passed down was because when they were brought over from their country in their boats, every time someone tried to escape and swim, they got captured and they got whipped. And obviously, why would that will be traumatizing to just get whipped. It's kind of like the rat getting electrocuted. So this got passed down through generations, through their genes. These genes were on and off, because it all goes down to your environment. So so when it comes down to you and your work ethics, and then actually limiting beliefs, which is kind of like this big, when I learned about epigenetics, I was like, okay, this is science, but this is linked to spirituality, and it's linked to consciousness, because you have to be strong will and have that like, walk in the space of gratitude to be able to decipher that and like break those like family chains. So for example, for me, I've never always lived in like, the best neighborhoods ever, and I feel like these environments bring you this like alertness to like, you're like living in the hood, and you're aware of everyone who's around you, and you see how these people, your neighbors, including family members of you, it's a little bit harder for them to actually strive. So it's almost like we applaud the ones that get out and got an education, became doctors, have a career, get out of the hood. So for example, like in my case, we've never been blessed with like having the best like economic situation, which is it's okay. I feel like this is like the path of life. So when it does come, like I'll be forever grateful. I feel like I am like, it's not gonna be like just like, well, get it all and waste it all, right? It's gonna be like walking in the state of gratitude is when things get gifted to you. So environment, to me, is very, very important, because then the environment changes your mindset. Then you get these limiting beliefs. You have this, I call it a poverty mindset, which is kind of like you believe you're broke because your family's broke, you're all broke. So you have this mindset of it's never going to happen because it's not happening to you right now, but you have your mindset set up that way. And I wrote something down when I was doing my research on epigenetics, which is your personality changes your reality. So if you want to make these changes, you have to change your lifestyle, you have to change your traits about yourself and your personality. So how do you do these things? So I wrote down a little 3-step thing of how epigenetics actually works and how we try to reverse that. So when it comes down to letting go of like reverse, like, limiting beliefs and these genes that get passed down, for example, like alcoholism, sexual abuse, all these limiting beliefs. First things first is like you start thinking, you get your ideas. You get your ideas to do better. You get your ideas to want to have a business. You want to like go to school. You want to write a book. For example, for me, like I've been wanting to create a show, to have a podcast, and it just became an idea. But this is the step number one, is where everyone always gets stuck on, which is kind of like why this whole episode is called Analysis Paralysis, because I was stuck on step one for so long, never pressed action. It always became a conversation. I did all the research, watched all these other podcasts, all these other shows, did more research, and still was like, there was no action. It was just a lot of wishful thinking. So number two is really, really important, which is pressing go, taking action on your just your thoughts. So you want to change. For example, you're always the friend who's depressed. You're always the friend who is a Debbie Downer, and you're just like, I don't want to be that way anymore. So you keep you basically think about like, how am I going to change that about myself? How am I going to just be happier? I'm going to start by smiling. I'm going to start by treating myself kinder, and I'm gonna be kinder to other people, and I am never going to just lead without saying no, for example, right? So then you're gonna just do it. And then you're gonna then go to step three, which is being. You gotta be that thing you're doing. Like for me, like, okay, I am now gonna be doing this show. So it's not gonna be my number one focus, because I have another job to pay my bills, but once things change, it will be. So right now I'm in the being mindset of like, I'm a talk show host, talking to my audience here, and I'm just like in that state of flow, in that mindset. You're like in that creative being. So what you do, this is really, really key, is don't recycle bad thoughts, because it will lead to your bad choices, and it will lead back to your bad behaviors. So when you're doing the 1, 2, 3 step process, if you keep thinking all these bad thoughts, you're going to set yourself up for failure, because then you're going to then manifest. You already put that thought out there. You just said to yourself, I cannot do it for X, Y, and Z. You're going back to that negative beliefs, going back to the epigenetics, instead of just trusting yourself, having that leap of faith, taking that risk, letting go of fear, letting go of being perfect, right? Like, you see how these things are connecting the dots? Like, I hope it's connecting the dots. So what you do not recycle these bad thoughts. You just keep going, keep pushing, go past the threshold, and have a little faith in yourself. God really believes in you. He's putting you in the right path. Just don't lose faith in yourself. So back to what I said, your personality changes your reality. So if you want to make these positive changes, you need to have the right personality, the right mood. So how you feel is how you behave. So be conscious and detach yourself, and be able and willing to make the modifications by making better actions. For example, like for me, when I finally let go of the alcoholism, I've been like, going on not 2 years yet, but it's going to be by the end of starting next year, February will be officially 2 years. But when, I remember okay, I'm going to just not hang out with my friends who drink. And then when I do, I'm going to okay, go to restaurants, not order a drink, and then not get the temptation to do it, let it go, be able to subsidize. And these changes are a little bit hard to do, but you have to think about the bigger picture and how these things are better for you. For me, when I started, when I stopped being bloated. I woke up and my skin just felt better. I was no longer froggy in the brain. It just everything just started functioning better. So the repeat, that's the hardest part. When you gotta continue to repeat, you don't have to go back to making those bad choices. So does your body like the pain? Do you how a lot of Mexicans say, "Te gusta la mala vida"? So it's kind of why would you suffer? why would you want to go back to having this poverty mindset of full of life of limiting beliefs? It's almost like you have to just think to yourself. And I feel like I think I was watching one of the meditation gurus on a podcast, and I wrote it down because I wish I actually wrote down who said it. But he said, when you are trying to detach yourself from pain, do you have to realize that you're making the choices that attract you to pain? So do you like pain, or is it familiar? Sometimes all of these choices that we do, that we make, and what goes back, and we basically break the pattern of 1, 2, and 3, which is thinking, being, and doing, and repeating. You're basically doing it because being in pain, being this way is familiar to you because it was passed down to you from generations prior, from like epigenetics. Like obviously, it's gonna be hard for someone who is gonna like stop sober, being sober, and it's hard, and it's always quicker for someone to relapse. But it's not because they were weak in the mind or they like pain. It's because that's what they're familiar with. They're familiar with that feeling. So the way you beat all of this, which is why I always this is called analysis paralysis. You beat this by jumping into the unknown. Like it should, the way you really break the gene code, the genetic code, because it's like I don't want to feel like I'm going to give you a red pill right now and I'm telling you you're in a matrix and this is a big simulation, because it's not a big conspiracy. But if you basically give yourself the analogy that this is like a computer programming, and you give yourself a program, when you get a computer, you put in Excel, you get Microsoft Word, you get all these programs that will help you do what you're doing. You get an antivirus. You get to treat yourself that way. Like why would you do bad things like play video games and do things that are going to give the computer a virus, right? Same thing. You think yourself like you are a computer, your brain's a computer. You read things, you get knowledge, you expand your brain. You don't give yourself bad things. You don't go out every day, lose sleep. You don't go out and like basically try to like drink all the time. That will slow your brain reproduction, because you're kind of treating it like a computer, because then you're giving yourself these like viruses. Like the way your body acts when you're doing all these bad things is repercussion of the bad things you were doing. It's just kind of like a programming when it comes down to a computer. So yeah, are we living in a matrix? Who knows? But think about it like that. It's kind of like think about like this a big whole simulation, and it's like the unknown. So the actions kind of don't matter, but you should be able to like, don't be like extremely delulu, but just be optimistic that this is for the better good and for the better you. And it's going to also set the example. Like if you are a parent and you have children, your children are not they're witnessing right then and there that these changes are positive and that they're willing to do it. Now, the hard part is repeating. So you gotta continue to repeat. So for me, yeah, I think I was so strong-willed that even like my mom would just sporadically just test me. She would be like, oh, we will go to a restaurant, and she's just like, oh, let's share a sangria pitch or whatever. And I'm just like, well, you could get one, but I'm not drinking. And I'm like, and then she'll tell me it's a big test. And I'm like, okay, but I'm already so strong-willed that I already broke that chain. And I don't think I ever want to go back. So I'm like extremely proud of myself for that. So the way you do all of this, and this is kind of like why I do wanted to, like when I do re-upload this again, once I, taught myself how to like do edits and how to like put videos or put little simulations where you get that visual, because like I think I'm giving you a lot of like, lived experiences that are coming from myself. But if I'm able to hold down on how to like really like through like an animation video or something like that, I could do it. Or who knows, maybe this needs to be successful so I could hire an animator and re-upload this like epigenetics, analysis paralysis, because all of this goes down to actually taking action. So I always say that humans are creatures of habit, and we really are. So we always have the habits of doing things, and we have the habit of going back to default mode and going back to what feels familiar, feels comfortable. Being lazy, are you lazy? Are you uninspired? Or is it just familiar to you to stay in bed, to be in your feelings, to go out at night and drink, to instead of like facing these emotions, being raw with yourself, being real with yourself. All of these things really take matter. So the way you defeat all of these things and you really break the chains of the gene code for epigenetics is by taking action and repeating it again. So don't let these ideas just become ideas and just stay there. Just put them through actions, and don't be scared of how it will be at the end. Nothing is perfect. And actually, I think I was doing like a writing exercise because I wanted to write a book, and actually right now it's so funny that I'm thinking about it right now, but it's in the back burner, and I just like, out of sight, out of mind, because I got stuck on like, writer's block. And I was just thinking that there are like there are like exercises that you could do to basically do it. But as you continue to like write the book, and I forget that I could do this, I'm just like, I got stuck on a chapter, and I was just like, oh, I'm gonna just like not do it anymore. And I gave up on it rather than just moving on. And then you could just go back to it, and the idea might come by just writing the story along, right? So it's kind of like, for me, like, I don't know how to do any of this, but this is all going to happen through my experiences and through taking action and just being able to not be perfect all the time and letting that go. Because like for me, it's just like all of these things feed the ego and that's not a good thing. So learn to walk in the path of gratitude and always be grateful for just the little things. Be grateful that you have a phone to record. Be grateful that you have like a space to record. Like all of these little things, you have to be able to be grateful for these things to just come to you, and like you have the right mindset. I feel like all of these things that I do and all these changes that I've been making are taking me to the like a more path of like enlightenment, where I'm able to just grow and just be more on the journey, and if it doesn't matter how long this takes or whatever, these expectations, these limiting beliefs, you're just doing it to yourself, and you're hurting yourself. So I don't know, it's a lot of blubber, but I think we're just gonna like end it on that high note and just say that I hope you guys learned something about epigenetics and how like these are genes. These are our genes, but they're not mutations. So these could be changed, and it's just changing your consciousness, being able to change your environment. Sometimes like if you think that you have really bad friends who encourage you to drink, for example, for me, stop seeing them. Get out. Like get new friends. Maybe you wanna learn how to become smarter. You wanna like, you're into poetry. Go to the library, meet friends there. Go to poetry readings and meet friends there. Things like that. Sometimes changing your friend group, changing your environment is always better. I know it's gonna be hard for some of us who live in like, like in the hood or the projects or whatever, to change our economic status like that, or change our environment, because who wouldn't want to live in the suburbs, right? But people who make it, and for example, like I think like was like LeBron James, who was in the hood and became a millionaire. He lives in like a nice house in the suburbs. He's gonna want to live there because he's changing his environment to change the gene code, right? I don't know, was that a too high of a reach? Okay, so as promised, I do have the poem that I was gonna read that I had really bad audio on the other one. So this is from one of my favorite poets. It's from Mary Oliver. This is called The Journey. And this is kind of important for me because like this is a journey that I went on just to go all willy-nilly, throw myself out there, letting go of fear to actually do this. I was like scared to go on camera because I'm like, oh my God, how am I gonna look? I'm gonna look crazy. Like I was so self-deprecating, including my voice. Like I hated hearing myself. So I, am learning to embrace all of me, I guess. So this is The Journey by Mary Oliver. One day you finally knew what you had to do, and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble, and you felt the old tug at your ankles. "Mend my life," each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiffness, and the very foundations through the melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough. And a wild night, the road full of fallen branches and stones, but little by little, as you felt their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. And that's the end of the poem. And I think I was saying this on the last episode when I gave you my analysis on the poem. And I think this last part is kind of like narrating a little bit about us. So when you take action on your thoughts and your thinking and your being, you come to the realization that there's no one out there coming to save you. There's no hero. The hero is you. You could only save your own life through your own actions. You know, for me, I always have all these doubts, and I leave my confidence behind sometimes, and I ask for people, and they do give me bad advice. But then it's yourself who encourages you to just forget the nonsense and keep going. So, no, that's a beautiful poem. Reading it today in a different day just made me feel it differently than last time, where I feel like my voice wasn't cracking so much. So, yeah, I hope that you're able to recognize your own self and know that you're worth it and there's nothing to be scared of. Okay, so, ooh, I should have put this back. This is a little paper I wrote down the 3 C's of styling, which is three C's like the letter C, and I just wrote it down for like one of my like another future episode where, you know, I want to talk about how to dress yourself. So that's cooking. Okay, so we're gonna have a fashion episode later on. Okay, so I do have a poem that I'm gonna read another one. So I was reading this, and I just thought it was so funny that I just randomly opened to the page, and it's just so funny that it's on the Analysis Paralysis episode. So this one is from, I still don't even know how to say the last name. I didn't even look it up, but it's Theodore Roth, R-O-E-T-H-K-E, Roth. It should be an L. I don't know. Sorry, Theo. Let's just call him Theo. So I just randomly opened to this page because I haven't opened up this book, and I was just like, oh my God, I haven't done it. And this is just a cute little poem, and it's about moving super slow. But there's like a little hidden message in there about making assumptions. So this is called Sloth by Theodore Roth. In moving slow, he has no peer. You ask him something in his ear. He thinks about it for a year. And then, before he says a word, there upside down and like a bird, he will assume that you have heard. A most experiencing lug, but should you call his manner smug, he'll sigh and give his branch a hug, then off again to sleep he goes, still swaying gentle by his toes, and you just know he knows. It's almost like, I don't know, like he knows he's lazy, or he knows that you know he's lazy because he takes such much time. So I just this poem is kind of like just full of like a lot of like, oh my goodness, funny that I'm reading it today because it's talking about you ask him something, right, and he thinks about it for a year. It's almost like me being stuck on analysis paralysis, and I think about my ideas and what I'm almost gonna let a year go by, and I just never did it. Like, can't do that anymore. And then he says he will assume that you have heard, unlike a bird, right? So he's just thinking like a bird takes flight, goes soars to the sky, but he assumes you've heard something. So this is I feel like a bad trait that a lot of humans have, which is we make a lot of assumptions. We assume that our friends don't want to hear from us or whatever, like, which is why I stopped sharing locations with some of my friends, because sometimes my friends, and like we're not even close like that anymore, but I remember that sometimes my friend will look at my location and not text me or not do something because she could see that I am at work or I'm doing something, rather than if she wanted to see me, wanted to hang out with me, she could have like texted me, make that approach, but she saw my location beforehand. So she's making assumptions, that's like an unhealthy trait. So I always I love that I'm like reading this today. So and then off again to sleep he goes, still swaying gently by his big toes. So when he goes back to sleep, I'm just thinking about like how you go back into hermit mode, right? And you go and through, like, some people go through these like array of feelings and array of like negative thoughts, and you go and you deprive yourself into depression, and you go back into what's comfortable, what's familiar. And the other people are gonna just like realize and just say like, damn, he knows, like he should know like what he's doing to himself. So it's so funny that I just stumbled on this poem today, just randomly opened the page where like it's like analysis paralysis. So I hope that no one is paralyzed anymore, and you're just able to take a little action, take a little leap of faith, and go into the unknown. And you could just do that. So don't forget to be like a little child. Don't forget to I don't know, be kind to your parents, be kind to everyone. And I don't know, just be a better you, okay? Do it for yourself. Take some action, and don't forget to repeat, right? That's like the big thing, repeat. Okay, so in the meantime, be kind to others, but most importantly, be kind to yourself. Love you guys. Bye.